Casual magic is about how we can find beauty in the mundane every day. We look forward to the 1% of our days that are extraordinary, like the birthday, the wedding, the job promotion. But wouldn't it be sad if we only felt joy 1% of the time? 99% of our days are just spent in the ordinary every day. And this podcast is all about training the habit of finding beauty in everything that is casually magic. Hi, my name is Jade, and welcome to the first ever guest episode of Finding Your Casual Magic. I am both very excited and a little bit nervous, so I really hope it goes well. There's so much goodness to come in this conversation. I literally can't wait. So the way that this podcast works is I am going to try and find a guest who pairs really well to the episode before. And the episode before, if you listen to it, I was introducing casual magic, diving into what it means to find beauty in the mundane moments of every day. And when I was brainstorming who represents this idea best, who can I bring on to have this conversation, I literally couldn't think of anyone better than my dear friend, Ruby Granger. Ruby has one of the most incredibly inspiring journeys. Not only is she this powerhouse YouTuber with almost 1 million subscribers who she inspires in such a multitude of ways. She started off as a studytuber, similar to myself, inspiring people to love learning, to feel less stressed about exams, and to kind of find this intrinsic joy within studying. But she's also so much more than that. Like the way that she carries herself as a person and on the internet radiates kindness. She's an anti-bullying advocate. She absolutely loves nature. She just carries this warmth throughout all of her content, and I just feel so lucky to also know her in person and to be able to give you guys a little bit of the warmth that she gives me every time that I'm in her presence. After gracefully receiving a rejection from Oxford University.
Most unfortunately, I wasn't successful in my application and I have not been offered a place to study.
Back in the day, back when I was also rejected, we had a lot to discuss back then. She went on to study English literature at Exeter University and recently just did a master's at Oxford. So she is such a testament to not letting rejection define you and to continue striving for your goals as you enter different seasons of life. I've always been very inspired by Ruby's spirit. And even though she is, yes, one of the most intelligent and hardworking and productive people, more than anything, she is just so incredibly kind. And I feel like being in her presence is like entering a safe space garden shrouded by leaves with all these little animals. And it just feels like you enter this magical space. And today, I'm talking to her in a whole new way. Normally, when I talk to Ruby, we can just talk for about 13 hours about literally anything and everything under the sun. But today we're digging into everything from her successes to her failures, her incredibly inspiring mindset on the world, and also how she finds joy independent of her achievements. So I'm incredibly honoured to welcome on Ruby.
That's so lovely. I'm kind of in shock. I don't know what to say.
We're here to hype you up.
Yes, but it's very uncomfortable to be hyped up so wonderfully.
Well, do you know what, Ruby? The way that we start this podcast is we always try and ground ourselves first.
Quite a good idea because I feel like I'm definitely like elevated high after that.
I'm just here to hype up your ego. So what I love to do with guests and also with viewers is just really to invite you to take 60 seconds to meditate with me. I know that you're familiar with meditation, so hopefully this isn't too daunting of an ask. I also really like to ask the audience to maybe put do not disturb on your phone or to kind of like carve out this really intentional time to be here with us in the space. And hopefully we can all get something beautiful out of this and just ground our energies. So let's meditate. Take a second to notice where you are in space. If you're in a room, how big is the room? What can you see? And if you feel comfortable to do so, gently close your eyes. Start to become aware of your breathing. Notice where you can feel the breath in your body. Maybe noticing the rise of your chest and belly at the inhale and fall on the exhale. Imagine yourself rooting down into the ground, feeling grounded and aware. And maybe notice if you're carrying tension anywhere in your body. If you can, try to allow that tension to release as you exhale. We're going to do a final 4, 6, 8 breath, where you'll take a deep inhale for 4, hold it for 6, and then exhale for 8. So when you're ready, deep inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold at the top for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and big exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Welcome to the episode. Hi, Ruby.
Hello.
Ruby, how do we know each other?
Well, it's funny because actually we knew each other before we actually knew each other in the kind of known sense and then like the mutual sense. I'd say we've known each other since our Oxford rejections.
we only truly knew each other when we were both rejected from Oxford. No, that's true.
Because it's more that like I knew of you.
Yeah,
like I could see your videos like popping up.
Yeah.
It was like kind of like out of nowhere almost.
Yeah.
There were these wonderful videos popping up on my like YouTube homepage of you know, like how to you know, like how I got all A stars at GCSE, or like how to study this, how to do that. And I was like, who is this person? Watching your videos. But I don't know how much to say though, but I remember sending you an email. Do you remember the email that I sent?
I do remember, yeah. So me and Ruby were first introduced via the big YouTube sphere because we both had similar StudyTube vibe channels. And then, Ruby sent me an email, like a formal
really
introduction.
Formal. Like, dear Jade, I hope you are well. I hope your day is like, it was so formal.
Yeah.
I was like, sometimes people collaborate on videos when they have similar channels. Would you be interested in collaborating?
Yeah, you like show me all this evidence of like collaborations and like
they exist. I promise they exist.
I think I have a similar number of subscribers to you, and so perhaps it could be mutually beneficial.
It's so formal.
Yes.
And then you were daunted by the prospect. And so that wasn't the beginning of us knowing each other, quite unfortunately. It needed kind of less formality for it to...
Yeah.
I can't even actually remember how exactly we decided to then meet up in person, because neither of us had ever met anyone online as well. And that was kind of
it was
quite
really
a scary
daunting.
thing.
Yeah, because even though you can see so much of another YouTuber's life, you just don't necessarily know who they are in person if there's maybe this secondary version that they put out on the internet.
Yes.
And even though I could see that you were so warm and kind online.
What if it was all a ruse?
What if you arrived and you were a diva?
Stop.
But
no.
I'm really happy to tell the world that Ruby is not a diva in person.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So the crazy thing is about having you here is that we've actually done a podcast before.
Yes.
This is not the first time that we are sitting together with a mic.
microphones.
I know. And you know what, Ruby? To commemorate that moment, I actually have something for you.
Okay. Oh no, don't tell me. Can I guess? Oh my gosh. Don't know.
What was the name of our podcast in the past?
Called The Wooden Spoon. And it's a hot wooden spoon as well.
So yeah, if you guys didn't know, me and Ruby and
Wait, I love that. Sorry.
It's okay. And we had a lovely podcast back in the day, back before podcasts felt like they were a thing actually.
Before we really even knew anything about them as well. Like it was kind of suggested to us, and we went ahead with it. But I don't think we really understood what we were kind of getting into.
So yeah, if you guys didn't know, me, Ruby, and two of our dear friends who are also YouTubers, Jack Edwards and Eve Cornwell, we had a podcast back in the day called The Wooden Spoon. Do you want to tell everyone a bit about what our podcast was about?
Well, wooden spoons are given when you come last in an event, in a competition, and it was a podcast all about success and failure, and redefining what success means, redefining what failure means.
Exactly, yeah. And we dug into all sorts of topics.
So much.
Yeah,
it was so varied looking at the themes. It's like one week was on mental health, which is so broad.
Yeah, it really was.
But I also feel that's kind of testament to like how long ago it was.
Yeah,
it was 6 years ago, and it kind of almost felt appropriate.
This entire topic
precisely
within 40 minutes between the four of us.
We did it. Success.
Yes.
No.
Yes, but I think that's why it feels so special to have you here as well, almost 6 years later, because we've grown and evolved so much since that time. And I think what's unique about both of us is that we've also captured so much of that journey online. And maybe you can speak to who you were when we first met. So you were in secondary school, maybe just starting a channel. Like, what were you like back then?
The most important thing in the whole world, let me tell you, was what grade you got on that report card at the end, and kind of the number that was at the top of an essay that was submitted, even like the amount of time spent studying. I think that was like the most important thing. Not the most, but like it was inordinately important. It was like more important than it should have been.
Yeah, I think we're quite similar in that respect, that like when we were at secondary school, we both put a lot of our sense of self-worth into the grades that we received. Like, a lot of our time was spent studying and trying to improve those grades. Yeah, what was that journey like for you? What were your habits and day-to-day routines around studying like?
They were very intense, like kind of long study days. Also very like quite repetitive, like, you know, kind of just really wanting to like drill something in. I'm not sure if you had the same thing, where it was like, if it was something that you really did not like both of us hated organic chemistry, right? We were so bad at organic. We just don't have the brains for organic. Yeah. We'd be like, what's your favorite? And we're like, physical. Yeah. Physical chemistry is so much better.
Anything but.
It's drawing. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was awful.
Yeah.
Just like my brain got so confused with this, not hydro, I can't even remember, like the kind of aspirin. I got so confused with aspirin. And I would, like, even when I'd crack something, it would be like, oh, because I dislike it, that means it's something I have to come back to, like, again and again, which is such a weird mindset. I wonder if you had the same.
Oh, for sure. I think, yeah, I hated getting things wrong. Like, I think we were kind of similar in that getting 100% always felt like the goal. It was never, you could never be satisfied with anything that wasn't having everything completely right all the time. And I know that I was very perfectionistic in those days as well, about making sure that those grades were what I wanted them to be, and like trying to always optimize. And it felt like if I didn't think that I was at the stage I wanted to be, all my free time was then directed towards trying to like meet that goal.
Even if it's only like a 1 or 2% increase. Like it's I can't remember who says this, but like, you know, the amount of time that it takes to get like 80% of the way is, you know, pretty like quite minimal, you know, like it doesn't take that much time, but then to get the extra like, you know, 10%, and then to get the extra 1%, like it becomes incremental. Like the further you get, the more time needs to go into like just make a 1% change. I mean, maybe that's something we didn't necessarily like realize, or because is it worth spending like X amount of time for a 0.1% increase in improvement? I'm not sure.
Yeah, why do you think it mattered to you so much getting the 100%?
Oh wow, okay, that's a big question.
I know. I still don't fully know the answer for myself, but like, what was it about us in those days? Like before the YouTube channel, like.
I think for both of us, nothing was ever really external pressure. Like we never really had external pressure from like, definitely not our parents. No. Neither of our parents are like that. You know, kind of teachers would often, I'm going to parents' evenings and teachers being like, Ruby, please stop working. Like your homework is to like watch a TV show on Netflix. Oh my parents would confiscate my flashcards, like.
Lock them in a box.
Literally be like, no, I want my flashcards. Just like watch television. So it really wasn't external pressure or like, you know, kind of expectation. Actually, no, that's a distinction. Pressure versus expectation. They're two different things. Did you feel the expectation from people?
I think because I put so much pressure on myself to succeed, I almost gained like a reputation as being someone who always like did well at school or like tried to succeed, and I think that created expectation because of that reputation that I almost was creating for myself. And I think that was then like upheld by people in my life, you know, like they're so used to seeing my parents are used to seeing a good report card, or the people in my class are used to me getting a certain grade. Yeah,
I'd relate to that entirely.
how did it change when you had a YouTube channel? Because obviously we were the kind of people who were already putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to succeed and to get top grades. But then we almost made it our quote unquote brand to be someone who cared a lot about learning and
got good grades. I think especially in the early days, like now I would say my content is very, it's so focused on like kind of the content of like the learning and what you're learning. Back at kind of GCSE and A levels, and also just as a result of the way that the exam system runs, the way that education is like so kind of institutionalized and formalized, it kind of makes sense that it was actually so much more about like what grade you are getting on the stuff that you're putting out. So much of the brand was like, oh, how like both of us made videos on like how we got all A's and A stars at like how to get all A's and A stars at GCSE.
Yeah, that was almost our credibility to be giving tips on these things. Yeah.
And then actually my A levels, I didn't get 3 A stars. You got 3 A stars. 3 stars. You're still carrying
that
it.
That is the reason. I'm never forgetting those A-level marks.
Technically there are 6, I guess.
Yeah. 6 A stars, come on.
Do another round of A levels.
Yeah. Never. We should do that when we're like 50. Just meet up again and do
A levels.
Yeah.
I was actually so tempted. In like first year of uni, I was like, I really wish I'd done psychology A level. I was like, why don't I do it? And I didn't, which I think was a good idea. But yeah, I got A star A in my A levels, and that felt devastating. It felt like the end of the world because that's your credibility, like the grades that you get. And so I remember being so unhappy with that, like really, really distraught. And like objectively, they are good grades. And I look back and I'm like, of course they're good grades. But like in that moment, it really felt like I had properly failed.
Yeah, and with this like note of credibility, was there like a fear that if you don't get those top grades, your advice is suddenly less credible, or that you're like not worthy of being followed as a study YouTuber? What do you think was that kind of fear behind not getting those grades? Was it like self-imposed pressure, or like how did the YouTube affect it?
It kind of feels like YouTube pressure is a very different thing to self-imposed pressure.
Oh, interesting.
Like they're kind of, obviously they're both there.
Yeah.
But the YouTube still does feel like so external that it's kind of easier to detach from, in my experience. Though it kind of, it's more that it kind of intensifies a pressure which is already there. And almost like vocalizes things that you fear. Like I remember thinking like,
that's so true.
Because getting kind of like A star AA, I remember there being like forums in the student room of being like, oh my gosh, Ruby Granger got A star AA. That's so embarrassing. That's so bad and everything. And that was exactly what I was thinking. So I was like, well, okay, this is, you know, like a mirror being held up. So this is the truth. And I think that's the hard thing about social media, that it's so easy to kind of trust kind of anything that like you see as being true, or kind of holding some sort of truth. And especially when you're younger, when you're like, we were like 17, 18, like how do you know kind of what's true and what's not true? Like I don't think you necessarily, I don't think I had like enough of a sense of self to be able to say this is true, this is not true.
And it's when, as you say, a comment is voicing something that you're already insecure about, or like a thought that you are trying to ignore within yourself. I think that is when it hits so deep.
Do you have any experience, like specific things, if you feel comfortable saying? Because also that's
so
so awful. You don't want to like drag them up, do you?
Let me tell you what you can comment on that would really hurt me.
Here is a list. They're linked in the podcast notes.
But no, I can't relate more. I think there's been so many points of my journey where I'm almost like trying to like ignore certain fears. Like even when I chose to go to an untraditional university or chose to take a gap year, that were decisions that I was already trying to convince the people in my life that these were good decisions. I was trying to convince myself that they were good decisions, and then to have people pick them apart and say that, you know, maybe this isn't a good thing that you can do. I think it made me insecure about my lifestyle choices. Yeah.
And when you're making such a massive decision which you're not sure about, I mean, like Minerva was so perfect for you, Jade. Like the most perfect thing. I remember you we were in the Cotswolds, and it was like 2 days before the application was due.
You were like the first person I told.
You were like, I was in my school yesterday. I like got all the paperwork signed, and like you just submitted it, hadn't you?
Yes.
And you'd done the interview like that morning or something.
Yes.
And you were telling me about it, and I was like, this was made for Jade. And I like properly thinking like it was kind of it being fateful as to like this was where you were meant to go, like you were meant to take that year out.
Let's talk about why this is fateful. I think we have to dig up the dirt and talk about rejection again.
Yes.
We have to,
Important.
right? Yes, so I think for context, because we say it like everyone knows.
I know.
Because
really
it does
bad.
feel like it's been such a huge part of our journeys. But both of us were rejected from our quote unquote dream universities.
Which we'd posted about on the lead up as well. Like we both posted like vlogs doing our interviews at Oxford. It was like very well known that we were applying at the time. Like and on the day like that we got, that all the acceptances came through, I remember it like people messaging being like, oh, did you get in?
Yeah. And I think it was so difficult for all of those reasons, because already we're the kind of people who put a lot of pressure on ourselves to succeed. And so we kind of already have these big ambitions of this university that we want to go to. But then you have this secondary layer of us literally creating like a brand and narrative around trying to get into that institution. And then when that falls through, you not only have to reckon with it personally for yourself, but you also have to reckon with it with the whole world knowing. How did it feel when you posted your rejection video? Because like me, you posted it like pretty much in real time.
I think we both posted on the day
brave.
that we were rejected. One of the most vulnerable things I've ever shared online, definitely. Kind of a hard thing to, like, you have to share it. I think it's one of those things where like I was sat there and when I opened the result, I knew that I had to share it online, but I didn't know kind of like how to do that. And the idea of doing that also felt so scary, because you already know that some of the comments are going to be really quite like very, very critical. Like, that already. And when you're already feeling vulnerable, that's not necessarily where you want to put yourself. But like retrospectively, I would say that, kind of, and tell me kind of how this like operates in your experience, but I think it's one of the most important videos I ever put out.
100%.
And one of the narratives online, which I'm most glad to have kind of been able to show, because it's, instead of it being a given that somebody's going to get into a university, which I think like to some degree, like we did have this kind of, oh, well, of course they're going to get in. Like people were saying that a lot. Also some people being like, of course they're not going to get in. Like it goes both ways.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, I don't know if this was similar for you, but when I received so many messages of people who had also been rejected, or who in the past had faced rejection,
definitely.
And literally had to see it as like rejection is redirection, because they had been redirected to places that maybe at the time they didn't want to, like that made me feel so comforted, because you just suddenly have like the voice of so many people who are going through the same thing, and you can relate, and you can be representation of someone who really puts their whole heart and soul behind something and doesn't get it.
Because that's so much harder as well. Like it's one thing to apply for something or, work towards something and, but kind of half-heartedly. It's another thing when, like the most vulnerable and the most kind of like, heartbreaking thing is when you put everything into something and then your best isn't good enough. Like there's kind of security in being able to say, well, if I'd only done this, like I didn't try my hardest. But when you did, like, and I think we both did.
When everyone knows that you did 14 hours study with me days. And
Yep. I did 3 hours of Oxford prep, like a night, like for a year.
Wow. Oh my God.
Which was, honestly, I don't regret in the slightest. It was more like super curricular, and it was encouraging me to read things I otherwise wouldn't read, and like writing extra essays. It was so brilliant. I think, kind of so formative for like falling in love with English literature in like new ways and ways that were self-directed. But like, it was also very, very kind of clear to others, but mostly to myself, that I had put everything into it.
No, 100%. Like I think it was one of the most difficult moments, especially because of the public nature of it, because you've poured so much time and energy into hoping that this thing is going to happen, and then I vlogged my entire interview process similarly, and so everyone is rooting for you. And on that day I received like hundreds of messages being like, oh, like, did you get in? Like so much hope. And then to share like vulnerably in real time that you didn't make it, it's just, it was the hardest thing ever. So when you were back in secondary school at the time of focusing so much on grades and also trying to build this incredible YouTube platform that you're pouring so much of your time and energy into, what do you think you would say was your definition of success at that time?
Success was so extrinsic. Like it was the numbers on the page. It was, like getting kind of the A, getting the A star, well, getting, not getting the A, getting the A star, and getting the 100, and kind of, everything was so like numerical, which, is such a bizarre way to define success.
But also so tempting and easy, right?
Yes.
When we go through a system where we know that our future life prospects like all ride on whatever that grade is.
Because we're told that. Like that as a narrative is so harmful. Like we're led to believe, and of course we're going to believe that because we've got, you know, like everyone's telling us this, and it's what does allow us to go through to the next stage for so much, like the whole way through our education. Like it determines your sets for like your, like in year 9, the test will determine your sets for year 10. Then if you do really well in your year 10, that will like mean that you can do triple science in year 11, or like then you can get into like a good place for sixth form. Everything like is dependent on those grades, and like and so of course we believe, it's all we need to be able to do. If we can get the grades, then we can do anything.
100%. And so then we start to equate the opposite of success as literal failure, right? Like we don't get the grades, we see our entire future life as not meeting the expectations that we have at that time. I love to speak more to this idea of fear of failing. How do you think fear of failure impacts your ambition? How do you think that affects the things that you strive for? Do you strive for more? Do you strive for less? Do you strive in different ways?
I don't know if this is the answer you want, because I don't necessarily I wouldn't say that it like has affected the things that I would strive for. I probably still strive for the same things. Like fear of failing wouldn't put me off like going for something.
Why wouldn't it stop you going for the things you want?
Because
are you able to manage that fear well? Like what is it? Is it that you can acknowledge you have that fear, but you're like the desire to have that thing you're ambitious of is more
more than that. I mean, also, actually, to be honest, probably, like, I'm thinking about kind of the past now. The pre-Oxford rejection me had never really failed at anything, which is an awful thing to say at the age of 17. Like, to be 17 and be like, I've never really failed at anything. If I went for things, I would often get them. And that's the main reason why I'm actually so glad I was rejected, because it was, and I think it had to be something major that I really cared about for me to learn anything about that. It's not going to change and ruin everything. It's not like it's going to change everything. But it didn't necessarily, because I hadn't really gone for things and then not got them. Yeah. It's not like I ever went, I can't go for this because I'm going to fail. I'd be like, I might get it. Like, because I didn't really have another corpus to work off.
But how fascinating that actually never failing gives us more fear of failure, right? Because we've never experienced it. It's like we want to continue this streak of constant success. And sometimes I'm almost jealous of, I think, the narrative that boys are socialized into versus girls. I think there's a lot of like perfectionism in the way that girls are raised.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Look perfect, be perfect, be a peacemaker, align everything in a way that is desirable. Whereas I think boys are allowed to like be like make a ruckus and be messier and fail over and over, and that's that builds their resilience in a manner that maybe we didn't experience because we were so set on keeping everything always at 100. And I think that is a huge thing that rejection also taught me, and not going to the uni that I wanted to taught me is that it's okay for things to not go to plan, and that's actually where like the real growth starts, is when you start taking those risks. Okay, but I actually have this quote from you.
From me? Where's it from?
You once said that it's not about the pathway you take, but how you walk that pathway. I don't know if you even remember.
Did I say that? Was that in my Oxford rejection video?
No,
it wasn't.
It was in...
Wow, it's very astute. I quite like it, but I don't remember saying it.
I don't know why, but I remember you having said this. And so I went through trying to find the video where you had said it, and it was when you were reflecting on your rejection, I think a year or two later.
Yeah.
And I think it's really beautiful because you're kind of saying that you can choose any number of pathways, and if one door closes, it's like it's how you walk that next one that matters. And I would love to hear more about the pathway that you then walked. So kind of your university journey, maybe how it differed from your expectations, how you changed subjects. Just talk to me about what happened for you when you went to university in the end.
So actually, like after the Oxford rejection, I changed courses. I applied for English, and then like kind of looking back, I know that this was completely coming from a place of insecurity, and kind of like I think it was quite defensive. I kind of told myself, I applied for the wrong subject. Like I was meant to apply for philosophy and theology, and I kind of took it as a sign.
And that's why I was rejected.
That's why I was rejected. And also it's a very easy path to kind of like oh, I'm not supposed to study the subject, I'm meant to study this subject, which is also like in terms of like, you know, taking a different path, or one door closes, another opens. It's like I think it's a much easier thing to understand or attach a narrative to or something. So I changed to philosophy and theology, which I did love as well. Like I loved the subject, and I've been debating between the two. And I did a year of that. And then I kind of realized in the first week of second year that it was not the subject for me. Like I really enjoyed it, but English was I just kept on thinking about it. And I was like, why did I not continue with that? And so really like in the space of a week, I just switched and went back to first year to do English. And so glad I did. Allowing yourself to change your mind is really, it's like actually really hard.
It is really hard because you almost have to admit that you didn't know what was best for yourself.
And when do we? Like, how often do we? Like, we definitely know what's best for ourselves, like after the fact and much later. But like at the time, can you ever properly know? Like, we're in a valley, we're not standing on the hill. Oh, it was much easier to articulate why I wanted to study theology. Yeah. Because you know, studying religion is kind of it underpins so much of modern society. It's one of the most important things for like kind of understanding the world and understanding how it operates. And so it kind of felt more grounded as to like why I would study that, because I was so clear in like why I thought it was important. And with English, it was more kind of, I just like kind of intuitively knew like this is so important. This is one of the most important things. Like in Dead Poets Society, when Robin Williams' character says you study sciences to kind of like, I'm not going to get it right, but it's like
we can start the clip.
Yeah, good idea.
Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for.
Studying literature kind of, I feel like the more that I've studied it, the more that has resonated, the more I'm like, wow, this is literally why we're here. But it's kind of harder to like actually articulate. And as soon as someone hears that you study English, people also go, what's the use in that? Like, what are you going to do with that?
Interesting. What is the use for you? Like, does it feel like as you're walking through the world, you having studied English changes your perception of it?
100%. 100%. I think it's more about how it changes your thinking, and the way that you think is going to change the way that you act. And so they are integrally connected. Casual magic is all about perspective, right? And that's about how you think. And so kind of,
and the way that you view the world then changing how you act. 100%.
Precisely. So kind of not precisely in like, I think that's similar. I think that's kind of like a similar. It's funny because I think externally it can look quite similar still. Not, you know, kind of, I don't do the same study days as I used to, but I do still, and kind of during my masters, I still studied a lot. I think it's more like kind of the underpinning of that which has changed. Like at school, we both said this, the grade was the most important thing. It was all very kind of extrinsic motivation of like getting to this mark. You need to do this so that you can kind of get this grade. Whereas during my time at university, and especially going into like second, third year and then masters, it became so much more about curiosity and just what do I find interesting? Like instead of me always having gone like, oh, if I don't like this, it's a reason why I should study it. Like I literally chose my modules in first year of university based on which ones I thought looked like the hardest and the most challenging.
Wow.
Intentionally didn't choose the ones I wanted to do because I was like, I want to challenge myself. And it, you know, we're always told like, you know, do the things that challenge you. And yes, to a degree, but I think with learning, the most important thing and the guiding factor should always be what excites you, what makes you, what is kind of like, is there something like burning inside you that you're like, I need to know the answer to this, I need to understand this.
I love that. How do you now study in a way which is curiosity driven? Because say you still have to write the essay, do the exam, like there are certain external pressures from the institution to learn in a certain manner. How do you let your curiosity drive you?
Well, I think it is easier at university. One of the criteria on the mark scheme is literally like, is it original? And if you're leading with curiosity, like it is probably going to be original because all of us are different and all of us are going to have different interests and bring all of our life experiences, everything we've read, everything we've consumed, everything which has ever excited us into choosing a topic. And I think that's so like fascinating as well, looking at like what people choose to do for their like, you know, dissertations and essays, because I found for me lots of my essays would come back to similar themes or like similar concepts, and
which kind of shows that those are ones you really like, you want to dig into, like you love
precisely
them.
precisely.
How did your relationship to curiosity and learning change when you were kind of on your gap year? You were out of education, especially as a study YouTuber, someone who spends so much of their time thinking about studying. Did you feel like pressure to learn, you know, when you were outside of education, or did you feel free to learn in all the ways that you wanted to?
Oh, Jade, the gap year.
The gap year.
The criticism of the gap year is insane. And I'm actually also
of not
on
being
like
a study tuber anymore.
I know.
You're also coming into a gap
Yeah, I'm
year.
also coming into a gap year, so slightly
Jumping off that.
back in. I was excited to kind of just learn the things that I was interested to learn, and so much of that then informed my master's application. So doing like studying and like learning just for the sake of learning in the months leading up to my master's application, and then kind of use that to inform what I wanted to study and like what I wanted to look into. Also, I did like ended up doing a lot of like work with author museums and author houses. It was like I wanted to kind of learn about these people, learn about these things. So I just kind of got in contact with people and was like, can I like discuss this with you? And that's like a very different form of learning, obviously, from institutional learning. But I feel like you're the person to talk on this with, Jade, because like
I was going to say on this note, because
unconventional.
when you're learning from the world or you're learning from projects rather than in assignments that are going to be graded, like that really does change the nature of it, because you're not putting your sense of self-worth in like the outcome necessarily. You're really just enjoying the process.
Yeah.
And I'm really intrigued if you feel that there was a turning point in your journey where you were able to disconnect your sense of self from grades. Maybe as you were learning in a way that was less directed by the outcome. Like, do you think that ever happened for you where you had that detachment?
I couldn't, like put something specific on it. I think it was more of like a gentle transition. But I would actually say, and I'm actually very much at peace with this being the case. But I don't define myself by grades, but I do define myself by the kind of intellectual work that I'm able to produce. But grades no longer, for me, define whether that's a good piece of work.
Ooh.
Within reason.
Oh, I like that though.
Because if kind of it's something that you have ended up being so interested by that, like, you've followed this to the very end of it, you think it's important, and you can justify to yourself and others that it is important. Even if you didn't end up getting like the highest mark on that, that doesn't necessarily, I don't think that would kind of bother me in the same way. Like, I'm confident in my essays before I submit them, and I think academia also can be very subjective, especially with English or an essay-based subject. Or actually, to be fair, like most research, when you cross into like second year of university, third year of university, and I think there's a big distinction between that. Even though it's kind of still you're defining yourself, I would say I still define myself in relation to academia, but not. I wouldn't say it's in an unhealthy way. I'm actually quite happy with that as a, like I quite like that my identity is somewhat tied up to that just internally.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, but I love that. And also, grades are useful. I think for people like us, we've been on such a journey of trying to detach our sense of self-worth from grades that we forget that they're also wonderful markers of excellence. And I think
but within reason. I think GCSE and A-level, it's
narrow. It's measuring such a narrow form of intelligence.
Yeah,
for sure.
precisely.
But
and
I
then
think,
to define that as intelligence, then kind of saying, oh, you got an A, which means you're intelligent. Like, no, you could have someone very intelligent,
incredible emotional intelligence as well. Or
precisely.
Yeah, incredible critical thinking, which isn't
or even,
measured.
I think like at A-level, you could have students who, I'm thinking of like kind of someone a couple years younger in particular, like mentally as I'm saying this, that I know. And they are so like kind of one of the most intelligent, like kind of curious, critical thinkers. So fantastic. And I was kind of like reading and like helping her with some of her A-level essays and giving her like feedback. And
we love a mentor.
And they weren't necessarily like the kind of, they weren't necessarily like hitting all of the assessment objectives and what she would need to get the A star, but she was 100% like an A star student, or she'd be in university and she'd flourish. And it kind of can feel so arbitrary when you've got students who you know are intelligent and you know would also like kind of flourish in higher education, but the A-level system is letting them down because it's not measuring the things that it needs to measure.
What would you like to see in A-levels?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
It's a big question, but like,
it's so much easier to deconstruct than reconstruct.
Yeah, like how would you like to see the education system develop or evolve?
I don't know how you do it, but we need to make it less focused on grades. And I think the taking away of personal statements, have you seen this?
Oh yes! Crazy!
What?
Yeah.
Who decided this?
I know! Yeah, you are just a bunch of letters.
It's like, no, we don't want those 4,000 characters anymore. Like, we're perfectly content to know what grades you got in your ASs.
I wonder how much of that is like to do with AI as well, and like people writing it with ChatGPT or...
Interesting.
Yeah. No, I think the education system definitely needs to evolve to measure more forms of intelligence, or even having different types of assessments, like vocal assessments, practical assessments that we actually value, you know, not like, you know, not coursework can be like 5% of your grade. And I think having things like across the journey of learning rather than just an endpoint would be...
What kind of assessments would you want to see? Like, are there any things that you like because of your degree, like any things that you would like that you kind of, any assessments or types of project that you did during your degree that you think would actually be so useful to have for A-level students?
For example, a really unique thing that we would do is a location-based assignment, which is where you have to apply your learnings to something within your context. So it invites you to like go out into the world to maybe engage with a local business or nonprofit or problem in your area and apply the learnings of that course to the thing that you're seeing.
That's amazing.
And to either develop a solution or a project or write an essay about the interwovenness of the subject with what you're witnessing. And I think that's really beautiful because it gets you out into the real world, sort of applying your knowledge in a practical sense, but also it allows for uniqueness and curiosity. Yeah, and it lets you really engage with the learning in a new way because you get to see it applied in, you know, to a problem that you care about.
And you're presumably working in some sort of team with this as well?
Sometimes. So sometimes it'd be a group assignment, sometimes it'd be a solo assignment.
Okay. Yeah. Just because like conversation as well and dialogue is always
peer learning.
Learning from people, like talking about something.
Yeah. Okay, so as someone who has gone on such a varied journey of academia, like you in terms of your sense of self being connected to grades, in terms of having like a strong public perception of you around your grades as well, and also this whole journey of like being rejected from Oxford but then also getting into Oxford, like you've had such a varied journey of achievement and people knowing you for that. I'd be so intrigued to hear what your updated view of success looks like.
That's a very good question. Because there can be no absolute definition of success.
No, just what does it mean to you right now?
I mean, so I'm gonna actually link it to how I define productivity.
Amazing.
So we'd always say like mindful productivity. It's not productive if you're not enjoying the work you're doing. So you could be efficient, you could have like a good work output, but I would not use the word productive, just in my personal sense, unless you've actually enjoyed that work. So if you've sat down for a study session and you've got like a hot, steaming mug of tea and it's raining outside, you've got some candlesticks burning, and like you feel content and you're getting work done, that is so much more productive than actually if you got like just the same amount of work done and you didn't enjoy any of it. And so success is the process of enjoying it.
I love that. Yeah.
I think. And also actually like kind of saying process of enjoying it, like etymology of the word success, right? It's about succession. Like if we look back to the Greek, it's like one thing that's like put after the next, and kind of it's about like things happening in succession. And so of course success has to be related to the process. And it's funny that we now like typically think of it as like kind of a single static thing that you become successful, that like there is a benchmark for that. But success is just like, it's caught in between many other events.
Wow, I love that. And what are some of your sources of joy within that process? So how do you find, so maybe it's the little herbal tea, like how do you find those little moments of joy in your day-to-day as you find that success in the process?
I think it's about the intention of things. Like, so tea is the best example because there are so many different ways that you could make a cup of tea. Like, you could, if you like, you grab a tea bag, you throw it in, add like haphazardly a dash of milk and run upstairs. It's sloshing everywhere and falling onto your clothes. And actually you feel a bit like, kind of like you're a bit damp with it afterwards because you're covered in like hot tea, maybe a tiny bit scalded as well.
I have 1 minute before a meeting, let me make tea kind of tea.
And that's like, you know, like convenience tea.
Yeah.
Convenience tea is a very different thing
Okay,
to tea.
Yeah.
So this here is a tea because it was made to me by one of my closest friends. Look at that. So of course it's imbued with that. It's like the narrative and the story of what goes into that thing. And so this cup of tea now has a story which gives it more meaning. And I think even kind of something like brewing tea like loose leaf as well does a very similar thing. Like you put the time into doing that and that it has a process to it. Again, like the process of it is what makes it into a success, because when you end up with that like lovely mug of tea at the end, of course it tastes better.
Oh, Ruby, I love that.
I just really like tea.
I love tea too. Maybe this is why it speaks so deeply to my soul.
You're like, I've never felt more seen.
Wow, this is exactly how I feel about tea too. How would you describe your perfect day?
Such a good journal prompt. I think it's also funny to track how you like answer it over the years. A perfect day.
Tea.
There would be tea. It would be raining as well. It would be all of those like small things that you're able to romanticize very easily. A perfect day is one that's easy to romanticize. I think. Yeah, I'm gonna
talk me through. So you wake up.
So you actually want it?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
We know it would not be sunny, and we know it would not be 30 degrees because, and we know it would be autumn because Ruby loves autumn.
I love autumn. I'm thinking 30th of September.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it's the 30th of September. It's raining. You wake and it's misty as well. Oh my gosh, you can see the mist. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Some of like kind of the leaves are starting to fall. There's a beautiful alder tree which you can see from your window. Oh, I don't have an alder tree, but gosh, I wish there was one. Because they are beautiful in autumn. Sorry. Okay, need to stop thinking about the trees.
You're in the vision.
I am. I'm there. Kind of going outside first thing and like just sitting and writing outside. I think there's something so grounding about writing outside in the morning when you've got like the cold morning air, and just having like a really mindful morning. And then in the day, it would be kind of like working towards something. So it'd be like something purpose driven, and it could be anything. Like that's so variable, but just something where you are like in the state of flow and it feels important, and it kind of doesn't even matter if it's not like important, because if you think it's important, it's important. And then like kind of, like sit in the afternoon, because I feel like it's harder to work in the afternoon, seeing a friend, just sitting and like chatting for like a couple of hours, preferably with more tea. The tea is quite important in this perfect day, actually.
Yes. How many cups are we talking?
8.
8. Noted.
Yeah.
With a different flavour for every moment,
yeah, of course, obviously. I mean, Jade was like, did you even have to ask that question? And then like a kind of clear evening where you could see the stars. I don't know, just like
I love
like
that.
a simple day, and it would be at home.
Yeah, I love that. I hope I'd be invited.
Yes. Oh my gosh, please come for like the afternoon deep chat, Jade. I was that was more of like an ask and a hint than
you
anything.
flatter me.
You flattered me, no. Oh no, it's so awkward. I'm sorry.
That's what you're about. It's not awkward. If grades no longer define you, what does? For that really deep question.
Wow. What
Your
does
tea
define
habits.
you? What you're focused on in that moment, I think, because you don't want to be defined by something. In that, again, I can't remember I can't quite remember the etymology of define, but it's about it's something about gating. It comes from something to do with gating, and you're literally like kind of confined by something. So if you give yourself a definition, you're confining yourself. So maybe it's about potentially like kind of the thing, again, like talking about purpose and being in a state of flow, like the thing that you're focused on in that moment. And I think it's quite nice that can change, and you're defined by what's important to you at that moment.
I love that. What is your gate right now?
Okay, Jade, you're gonna buy this. I think you're gonna like this.
Okay.
I've set myself a personal curriculum for
Of
this
course
year.
you have. Okay.
But like properly reading lists.
Amazing.
Set theme every week.
Okay.
Every month is a different module.
I love it.
And so I'm kind of just doing like a teaser for August. It's just like 2 themes. And so I'm actually looking into routine at the moment, the kind of philosophy and psychology of routine. And so I'm very much in that gated kind of, I'm defining myself by that at the moment, like kind of that learning. And I think that's so fun, like kind of being fully immersed in something. I think that's quite fun.
Do you have any learnings or tips on routine that you've learned right now?
I'm early stages. I'm also kind of, I'm looking more, it's not so much at the moment about like tips and like kind of output. It's more, because I'm exploring it more philosophically. So thinking like, how do people, like, how do you actually define routine? Like habit versus routine as well, like kind of what's like the line between those.
I love this stuff.
It's so interesting. I read a really good essay yesterday. I will send it to you.
Oh, please do.
It was really interesting. Just like getting yourself to like think differently about something is always so fun.
Yeah. I think you would be really well placed to advise on this. When there is still a full to-do list waiting, how do you tap into casual magic? How do you allow yourself to find little moments of joy when you still have a lot to get done?
You romanticize the to-dos. That's what you do. If I'm feeling unmotivated or kind of like you feel like you're feeling really, really stressed, turning your to-do list into a narrative and turning it almost into a story. And like if you write your to-do list like a story, it can actually, it actually really, really works. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like something which you find in between things. It can be the thing itself. And it's just about changing your perspective on it, right?
100%.
So if you can kind of, instead of writing like, kind of write essay with tons of exclamation marks, which suddenly looks really daunting, especially if it's all in all caps with underlinings. Awful. I mean, horrible. Who's going to look at that and be like, oh, I'm so excited.
I'm so excited for my day.
But if you say something like, delve into the, isn't delve the one that AI really uses? Sorry, I just used delve and then I was like, that's the word that like, have you seen this? And it's like, interviewers are like, if they use the word delve, then they're AI.
Yeah, you're an AI.
This is it. This is evidence here, evidence-based. Delve into the intricacies of the philosophy of time today. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know how exactly you'd phrase that, but like something along those lines, like really...
Yeah, first I'm going to enlighten my day by delving into the mysteries of routine.
Precisely. Look at that. How much more exciting does that sound?
Yes.
It like, and if you turn it into a narrative and you're like
literally becoming the main character.
Yeah, exactly. Why not be the main character?
100%.
You are the main character.
Yeah. Perhaps the final question for a piece of advice that you could give listeners is, if there's anyone out there who is kind of this perfectionistic achiever, wants to achieve incredible things in life, really like wants their grades to be amazing, wants to get into the top university, has kind of a similar narrative to the narrative that we had when we were younger, what advice would you give them? What questions might you ask them, or lovely words of advice to give?
I don't necessarily know if they'd listen to the advice. I don't know if younger me would listen to advice. I think questions, you're right, is like the way to go. I wish that I journaled more. I mean, I journaled, but kind of in a very different way to maybe how I now would. Always ask yourself the why, like, why are you doing this? And be so, like, kind of creating that intrinsic motivation is so important. Like, if you can kind of be secure in like why you're doing this, and it not being because I want to get into this university or I want this grade, but it being because I love learning about the philosophy of routine. I mean, as soon as they say that, then like it. But I don't know how you shift that.
I really like your point, because also not framing it as a bad thing to be ambitious and motivated, right? But maybe to just like ask these questions to make sure that you're having the self-awareness about why you're doing the things that you are, and like how it can best serve you, and making sure that your routines and habits and motivations serve you.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of phrasing it. I really like that.
Yeah. And finally, do you feel successful?
Yes, I do feel successful. But I think it's something you have to remind yourself of. I don't feel successful all of the time. And also I don't actually like the word successful, to be honest. Okay. Because I love that. It's caught up in so much. But like by my definition of success and like kind of being caught in the process of things, I would say I work towards trying to feel successful, but it's something I work towards, as opposed to, and like have to be intentional about, as opposed to like I just feel successful. Like I definitely don't
success
feel
is a muscle,
successful.
because by your definition of trying to enjoy the process, I guess it's like something you have to train, a perspective you have to train.
And you don't always feel that.
Yeah.
Stop.
Oh, Ruby, this has been so lovely. Thank you. Okay, so we have this little habit on the podcast where I will share my casual magic of the week, and I'll also ask you to share your casual magic of the week, and then we'll also get one of our wonderful listeners to share their casual magic. So they'll send in little voice notes, which is lovely. So maybe I can start with something that's been casually magic in my week. Very small and random, but yesterday I was at a cafe and the weather was really lovely, so I was sitting outside and I was just doing my work, and then all of a sudden I felt something like brush my leg, and I looked down and there was this sweet dog that had just arrived, and it was just like leaning against me, and this lovely like elderly woman came over, and it was her dog, and we just had the sweetest little chat. She was telling me about this dog. Dog's 13. Yeah, Bobby.
Bobby, that's such a good name.
I know, he's so sweet. And it was just such a wholesome, lovely interaction on what could have just been me working for a few hours. You know, it regrounded me to the space that I was in, and it just was a lovely moment. Yeah.
I love that. Oh, I feel like this is so obvious now. I'm so sorry.
Is it about tea?
It's about rain.
Oh.
Because we got rain the other day, Jade. I mean, how was that not casually magic? And it was just the timing of it which made it magic. I was kind of having like quite a stressful day, like wasn't, feeling the best. I was like, I'm going to take a mental health walk. I'm going to kind of really try and like reset my mind. I got outside. The second I step into that field, it starts torrential raining.
Oh.
It just felt like a sign from the universe. It just felt like cleansing and
catharsis.
Yes, literally, it felt cathartic. And I think one of my favorite things about being on a walk when it's pouring with rain is the people you pass and the different perspectives.
Yes.
And you have to kind of pare back your excitement a little bit, because I think people get a bit.
Everyone's like.
Yeah, precisely. But like people stop and being like, oh no, there's awful rain. I can't believe it started. I'm like, oh, I know. What a shame.
You getting out your rain hat.
No rain hat today.
Oh.
No. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad that I have the rain hat. But it did feel magical. It felt magic.
I love that. Thank you. And now we're going to listen to Casual Magic from one of you guys. And this has been sent in on our Instagram page. So if you want to have your Casual Magic featured at any point, you can drop it there on Instagram.
Hey Jade, I'm calling in from Berlin, and I just have to share this casual magic moment with you. So I was feeling so nostalgic and sad about leaving the city and all the friends that I made here behind. So last night when I couldn't sleep, I was tossing and turning, thinking about everything, just feeling so restless. I then decided to get up, open the curtains to get some air, and in that exact moment, just as I looked outside, the clouds parted and the biggest, brightest full moon I'd ever seen appeared. It felt like the universe was giving me this reminder that we're all always under the same moon, under the same sky. Even when we're far apart from the people we love, we're never truly alone. There's always a connection, an invisible thread that ties us all together, even with me leaving the city. It made me feel so peaceful and calm. So thank you, Jade, for always reminding us to look for those casual magic moments in life, because once you start looking, you realize they're everywhere.
Okay, so we do this other little thing to close off every episode where I ask everyone and you to kind of reflect on your week. And there are 3 journal questions which people can do on their notes app, or they can get out a journal, or they can just think about it in their head. And so as I ask these questions, maybe you can have a little think, and then we can have a chat about what your intention for this week is. So the first question is, what has gone well this week? What are you proud of this week? You can take a moment to just reflect on that. And then maybe what is something that has been more challenging this week? Or what is something that has been less ideal, somewhere you need to give yourself grace? And then based on these reflections, I ask you to come up with a 1 word or a phrase of an intention that you want to carry into your next week, how you want the next week to go. So maybe you can just have a little think, or anything that comes to mind. Doesn't need to be dramatic.
Existing outside.
Existing outside. Like spending more time in nature?
Yes, spending more time in nature. And also offline as well. I've been online quite a lot this week.
Brain rot, doom scroll.
Oh no, I had the pumpkin planner launch
Oh my
week.
God, okay.
And so it's been just like so much like online
That's
stuff.
not brain rot. That's
Well, I mean, it can be
Bad
quite repetitive. And so it's kind of, I think it would be quite nice just to, I want to kind of like step away from screens next week and just like feel grounded outside, and feel connected to something which isn't like a phone screen.
How do you feel when you're in nature?
I was going to say content, but I don't think content is the word, because content feels too like placid. Do you know what you know?
I know what you mean.
It's kind of more like expansive than that. Like when I love how I'm saying this like, oh, it's a universal thing. I know that you're thinking the same. But feeling kind of like connected, and that like, and it always sounds so wishy-washy when you say it, but like it's the only way to kind of...
But I get it. It's like, yes, you're connected to yourself, but you also somehow feel connected to the world and others. And it is just connection. I love that. My intention for next week is I have a lot of scary and exciting change coming in my life, which I've not spoken about on the podcast yet, but I will. And I just need to sort out a lot of logistical things. And so as I'm sorting out all of these things, I think the intention I have is embracing change rather than resisting it, rather than having fear of it, embracing the instability that comes with things shifting in life.
Oh, I love that one. And also much easier said than done.
Much easier said than done. Well, Ruby, this has been such a joy. Like, genuinely, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing so much of your wisdom and your life journey. And yeah, honestly, guys, if you would like to see more of Ruby, which I can imagine that you do because there's just so much goodness and kindness and warmth in her energy, you can find her on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on all the platforms as Ruby Granger. And Pumpkin Productivity launch. Would you like to quickly speak to that?
There is one in my bag. Should I just give it to you now?
Yeah, come on.
I was going to give it to you afterwards, but I mean, obviously not in academia, but still, we're on a journey of learning.
This.
And it had to be green because I feel like green is... Oh, no, I should have brought purple. Why didn't I bring you purple?
No, this is gorgeous. This
in
is
my head,
perfect.
I was like, green. Obviously, Jade is green. Or Jade, green.
Jade,
like,
it is my name.
Nature,
It's
like
my
all of this.
namesake.
I really associate this colour with you.
Thank you, Ruby.
But
This
also
is gorgeous.
purple.
No, this is amazing. Thank you so
sure?
much. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create my own curriculum for the year.
You should.
And then use this
Should we
academic
do a
planner.
module together?
Yes, we should do a module together on routine. Yeah.
I would love that. Like a weekly seminar, just the two of us. And we're like, so, Jade, tell me.
Wow, what a special episode. I just feel so grateful to be able to have friends who have so much wisdom and knowledge and joy to share with the world. Like, thank you guys so much for getting to this point in the episode, for being in this little corner of the world. And I really hope that you took away something from this that can impact your life in a positive way. I think for me, this was a reminder of just how far I've also come in terms of my thinking around studying and productivity and success. And I really resonate so much with Ruby's newer definition of success, which is finding joy within the process of things. I think that is a lot of how I carry myself through the world and through my projects now. So that was a lovely reminder, and she put words to it so well. And as always, I hope you remember that you are enough exactly as you are. If no one has told you today, please remember that no matter where you are in your journey towards achieving the things that you want to achieve or being who you want to be, that who you are today is also exactly enough. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you next time. Ruby, do the honors.
Stay tuned and stay magical.